Hi, I'm Rutledge.
Hey, I'm Connor.
Oh, and it is Connor. It is early. We are here, and it is Happy Thanksgiving. I don't have the words for it right now, but Happy Thanksgiving.
You can tell who the morning person is in this on this team and who the not morning person is. But we are Friends Stream Sports. Happy Thanksgiving from our PS4 to your Twitch screen or podcast viewing ears, listening ears. We are excited to be here today. Talk about some Thanksgiving, not just food, not just friendship, but also what matters most: a little football. Rutledge, you excited for this morning?
I am working on that, but yes, I feel good. I am excited that we're going to play the Thanksgiving game that you'll never see. We're going to fire it up, and we're going to go Lions, Cowboys. So we're taking it to Detroit this morning. You know, I've always wondered, what's that like if you're in Detroit and you're getting up for that noon game, which is what, 11 a.m. their time. What do you think that's like, Connor, to make that your day?
Well, first, Detroit is Eastern time, so that would still be noon. But from the player perspective, I mean, they play on different times. They play different pieces. So noon, that's usually probably about an 8 o'clock team breakfast. Followed by any other meetings and getting to the bus. Now the big piece would be the COVID protocol piece. In terms of what you got to do there, but that's part of the job. You might have to be playing on Thanksgiving. You might have to be playing on the road.
Exactly. See how that goes. Want to give a big shout out. We have a viewer this morning, Connor. A friend of mine named Matthew Slaney is up. So good morning, Slaney, and happy Thanksgiving. We're glad you're here.
Good morning, Slaney.
Okay.
So, no, that's the good old Thanksgiving days. I've played in a few Thanksgiving Day games. Or not Thanksgiving Day, rather Thanksgiving week. I have been a has-been in a few Thanksgiving week games. I've still been an athlete while watching some Thanksgiving week games, and been able to look at this day and look at this week from a variety of perspectives, Rutledge. But talk about you've got a special element that you bring to the Thanksgiving Day table, and that's being from Canada. Talk about that a little.
I raced cars as a kid, so for us, we would have what's called the Turkey Day race, which is the last race of the season. It's first weekend in October. It's starting to get that not uncomfortably cold, but it's starting to get that pretty hefty Pacific Northwest cold. So I have lots of memories of being at a little racetrack as a kid, and we would usually eat a Thanksgiving like lunch, and then all of our races would be at night. So those are my big, while I didn't play football, those are my big kind of Thanksgiving Day memories. Connor, was Wheaton on the verge for a championship any years you were sitting there having Thanksgiving? You're waiting for that ring to come?
Close one out at the sidelines to Amari Cooper there. So when I played football in high school, never made it to Thanksgiving week playoff wise, although we were in the playoffs a couple times. When we were at Wheaton, we had 2 playoff runs that stretched into Thanksgiving. So my sophomore year, we actually made it to the semifinals, played Mount Union, which was 2 weeks after Thanksgiving. I was just telling Rutledge in our pre-show prep that Thanksgiving week for Division III is usually the second round of the playoffs. So we had to, our coaches were always good about making sure folks had a Thanksgiving place to stay and be. And then my senior year, we played Bethel, which unfortunately ended up being my last game. So if there's any Bethel Royals out there, still a little bit bitter that you ended my career. But good practice, got practice done early, and then went on with the rest of the day and just kind of worked around a few different meals. So Thanksgiving has, as I said, it's had a lot of different a lot of different opportunities and a lot of different. I've been able to see it from a lot of different vantage points, but putting the pads on Thanksgiving morning for a little practice is definitely that's a fun way to do it. But so, Rutledge, I'm interested. Talk about your race car racing on Thanksgiving. Was that like a Boykin family special, or is that like an actual Canada thing?
So that was I raced quarter midget cars, and we had what was called and we had a little track, which is actually still there today. I Googled it on one of my late nights where I was still awake when Connor was sound asleep. There's a little racetrack that's near the border in British Columbia from the state of Washington to British Columbia, and we hung out there. And the season is like all year kind of long. You start before Easter, and you go until until Canadian Thanksgiving starts. So that's kind of the way the whole thing does. And it was really neat. I had a really good time and got to participate, and the championship had been determined usually when you get to the end of that, so everyone got a participation trophy, and it was just a way to kind of end the year. And it was a night race, so being Pacific Northwest, there's no rain, but you had to like wear your jackets and stay really warm and keep your cars dry, and they would usually have to dry the track from just like moisture build-up. But it was fun.
Nice.
So Connor, we're getting ready to eat today.
Yeah.
What is your big like go-to? What's the plate look like? What are you counting down for today when you have the meal?
All right. So the plate is actually whereas before in the buffet busters, I was a buffet buster. It was the plate looked like a mountain of food. Everything was everywhere, but I am actually, when it comes to the turkey, you gotta have a little bit of turkey on there. I know that dark meat has the tryptophan, but dark meat is generally a little moister of a turkey than the light meat turkey, so I go for a little dark meat. I will put on, gotta have some mac and cheese, and you gotta have a little bit of maybe a green bean casserole on there. Gotta have the key things, in my opinion, right? Not a ton of cranberry sauce, but a little bit of cranberry sauce can go a long way to add some flavor profiles to a variety of meats. But also the roll. You gotta have a good roll there to be able to sop up, that extra Thanksgiving love, the residual love, if you will, that's at the bottom of your plate. So, there's so many great options. When I started hanging out with more folks who, from Alabama and Georgia on Thanksgiving morning, shout out to the Brooks family, learn of the glories of Thanksgiving potato salad. But those would be some of the big ones for sure for me. So, what about you, Rutledge?
My plate is a very simple turkey gravy, dark meat turkey, like you said, some green bean casserole, get the mac and cheese in there. Very kind of similar sort of throwdown, and then just plow that back on repeat. And I like Thanksgiving. I am someone who likes Thanksgiving a little bit more than I like Thanksgiving leftovers. So today we're gonna do some damage. Been getting it in the gym, keeping the calorie count down. We're gonna wreck some stuff today. Pants are not gonna fit tomorrow. So that is the plan.
One of my favorite Thanksgiving traditions has been to weigh myself after my Thanksgiving workout. I'm not a full turkey trot kind of person, but I will definitely work out. Then what I will do is eat my heart out, and then I will weigh myself at the end of the day. And on average, over the past few years, I have gained no less than 8 pounds. I've put 8 pounds inside of me between all the beverages and the meats and the foods during the day. So yes, what a good day to throw down for sure. What a good day to start celebrating Christmas. What a good time to let Zeke eat with that big run ripped off there by
he ate. To our people out there watching us out on Twitch, thank you for coming. Take some time in the comments to tell us what your favorite food is, what you're excited about today. If you're listening to us on our podcast or watching us on YouTube, we're doing a special Thanksgiving episode today at 8 a.m. Normally we're rocking the stream here Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. But for those that came out, thank you for supporting us this early in the morning. Connor, how are you getting your football in today?
Ooh.
As we wrap up the first quarter.
You know, I gotta. There'll be some NFL Red Zone, that's for sure. NFL Red Zone, and then, unfortunately, we're going to touch on this later. Unfortunately, we won't have the night game, but got some Fox, got some NFL Red Zone. Try to catch. CBS is tough, man. When you don't have cable, CBS can be tough, but definitely not the dog show. So, what about you? How are you getting your football in?
I do have CBS that I can get, but I'm a huge I like NFL's app. NFL released their mobile app, and they will broadcast their primetime games on the app for free. So I have some people staying in my house. I have a crowd going. So my plan is to just kind of have my phone running the NFL app and just carrying that around my house all day long.
Wonderful. That, there's something to be said about the beauty of the screens and the mobile action that's there. So,
but I will say, though, I am frustrated because, as usual, Thanksgiving football, it's kind of garbage. No team this year, Connor, has a winning record playing for Thanksgiving. And this is a regular NFL Sunday. Unless these were one of my personal teams, I wouldn't be locked in. So why do we have to suffer through this year after year? Why does this happen to us?
But before I share my take, I'll share. And I'll give credit where it's due. I'll share a little Rich Eisen take. Watched some of his show yesterday via Peacock, and he was talking about that very same thing. And Rich Eisen was saying, we're going to watch it regardless. That's how cocky the NFL is. The NFL knows that we're going to be watching Thanksgiving Day games, and we'll watch bad teams play football, and that's going to be a thing. But no, I agree. Thanksgiving Day football has been a snoozer for a while. You would wish that there's one team that's at least good. I think we're going to have one game with some playoff implications out of the two we're getting today. But we're at Ford Field. So Rutledge, talk to me about the Lions, man. I mean, why?
Oof.
What's going on there? I mean, why should I watch that? Why shouldn't I watch the dog show?
So, why shouldn't you watch the dog show? I've always been bothered by how everyone's wearing the most intense orthopedic shoes at the dog show all the time. It's kind of intense. But Lions football, so I did some research and watched it and pulled some stuff since 2006, because that's when really the wheels started to fall off the bus up in Detroit. In Thanksgiving time, Detroit has gone 4-10 on Thanksgiving Day, and their wins, that includes their winless season that they had, and most of their wins that they've had have been their losses have been absolute blowouts. So it's not even like the game is on and you're half interested. It's just a shuck of a game that sort of we suffer through. So Lions football has been up and down in this weird dynamic. I also find it strange. I know that it's tradition to have the Lions on at noon, but when you come to NFL franchises, it's not a huge, massive franchise that you kind of stare at. I know as a kid, I knew who the Detroit Lions were just because they were on Thanksgiving. But it's not the massive big team like a Packers or a Bears that you sort of follow. So Lions are really sort of struggling. I also want to kind of share that the Cowboys do a little bit better over the past 14 years. They're 8-6, but Cowboys, while everyone knows them as America's team, they haven't really done anything for America since maybe their last kind of run in the 90s and a few playoff spots here. So I think these are two teams that, while in the NFL and play games, it's been more about the storylines of who they're playing than what they're personally doing on the field. Connor, what is your take sort of on these two teams and their sort of dynamic?
Yeah, it's I do have family up in Michigan, so definitely they will be following the Lions, and they do follow the Lions and things like that. But for the most part, it's just the NFL does it is able to capitalize on the fact that, well, what do we do at noon on Thursday? Guess we watch the Lions. So this is I remember as a kid watching ESPN highlights of those fans with the bags on their heads, with the turkeys in their laps, watching, seeing the Lions, not be good. Even during the Barry Sanders days, they weren't all that good. This has not been. Oh my goodness, I should have sacked you there. You force pushed me around you. That was neat. For those listening on podcast while Rutledge and I are playing Madden, I just made a gigantic boo-boo. Cowboys, yeah, I think that I wish that the Cowboys were better. I think the Cowboys are kind of like the Knicks of the NFL, where when the Cowboys are good, I mean, the NFL is better when the Cowboys are good,
Yep.
It was hopeful with Zeke and Dak Prescott, and then you added Amari Cooper, kind of more of a team like what we're seeing now, good offensive line. But man, they just, for one reason or another, they haven't seemed to put it together. And I think a lot of it right now, Mike McCarthy is going to be. I think that Jerry Jones will be too proud to fire Mike McCarthy early, but he's not doing that franchise many favors at all. So those are some of my thoughts.
No, he's not. I think that while even Dallas is a relevant franchise, I think getting them off of Thanksgiving would be good for them, because while there is, some playoff applications this year and they are kind of good, the Cowboys haven't been a good team in a long time. I'm a big believer as someone that Tony Romo was an overrated quarterback, and while he was a quarterback kind of almost like Zeke is taking off again. He was almost like a quarterback that you said, who else do I go out and get? Kind of like our take to Matt Ryan. He wasn't a quarterback of someone that was going to lead you to the promised land. But Connor, I had this idea that hit me as I got my 4 hours of sleep last night. I really think that the NFL, someone who does a really good day of holidays is the NBA. And I pulled last year's Christmas schedule, and this was NBA Christmas Day schedule when they delivered it. And these games are not in order of what time they started, but this is sort of the whole lineup the NBA had on Christmas Day this past year. There was Celtics Raptors, Clippers Lakers, Rockets Golden States, Milwaukee 76ers, and Pelicans Nuggets. And as we saw, that would have been a really good game because the Nuggets went deep in the playoffs this year.
And Zion.
Yeah, and Zion. You have a young Nuggets roster versus Zion Williams and a trying to make something Pelicans roster. So, why is it that the NBA can't copy? Why can't the NFL be more like the NBA?
You're right, Rutledge, and I totally wish that was the case. That's actually my take for MLS. That more folks need to be calling dibs on more holidays, and I think that's we know the schedule's pretty early on, and we did some research and went through to see all of this different schedule pieces, and it's definitely, there's a lot that goes into it. Oh, pick.
Beautiful pick.
Wow. But the big thing is, you play, if you end up first in the division, you play other first place teams. Like, we know that at the end of the current season, we know what at least some of your schedule is going to be next year. And as things progress, we know when New England is going to finish first but lose Tom Brady, and not be the New England that we saw the previous year. So, I know that there's computer simulations and things like that, but Roger Goodell can't pick up the phone and say, hey, I want this team versus that team on Thanksgiving Day. I don't get it. Now, we do need to pour a little out our coffee this morning for the Ravens-Steelers game, but yeah, and I think that was the NFL's attempt at putting a marquee game on Thanksgiving night, but man, this is the fact that the NFL is cocky enough to just assume we're going to watch and give big ratings is pretty lame.
Did you read the tweet that Pat McAfee put out yesterday that I sent you while I was working out?
Yes.
Pat
That
McAfee
was
said yesterday on Twitter, he said, not to be dramatic or anything, but people needed Ravens Steelers to happen this year on Thanksgiving Day. And yeah,
America needed it to happen.
America needed it to happen. To further, and I was looking at the schedule, and you're right, there could have been a big marquee game. And when you looked at the schedule, some games that are this week that I think would have made a pretty sweet Thanksgiving based on everything you just said is you had Ravens Steelers, obviously, which was postponed. The Cardinals are playing the Patriots, so no Tom Brady, but watching two different sort of rushing primary quarterbacks, seeing who can run the pass better. And then the Chiefs play the Bucks. So old school versus new school, Brady versus Patrick Mahomes. Think about if that was your slot lineup. Chief Bucks at noon, Cards Pats at 4:15, and then closing out the day with Steelers. So one can only hope.
But, I think part of it, too, that we do need to take into consideration, you and I talk about, I think there is a little bit of, hey, these guys are professionals and you gotta flex, you can flex into a game. I think that it's one thing to flex from a 1 o'clock Sunday game to, the night game and vice versa. You got a Sunday game, right? You're off Monday, you have 1 day of practice on Tuesday, then you're walking through, you're probably not even putting pads on that week. That would be the only thing that might drop a little bit of the quality if you're trying to flex a Sunday game back to a Thursday game. But look, these guys. I think that these guys are professionals, and I think that it's part of it. That I think that should be part of what we're trying to work through here.
Absolutely, and I think it comes into when we pulled the NFL scheduling rules we were putting together our show, and there's one line in here that I want to read from it. So they say you get 6 divisional games, 4 games against teams from a division within your conference, 4 games against a team with a division from the other conference, but this one is 2 games against 2 teams from 2 main division in its own conference, 1 at home and 1 on the road. Matchups are based on division rankings from the previous season. So kind of like you said, top finishing division should play top finishing division. In the NFL's rule, that's just a very blatant, hey, we could schedule whatever we wanted on Thanksgiving Day. But we don't, because like Rich Eisen said, we're going to watch Lions at noon.
That's just going to be a thing.
It's just going to be a thing.
And what's also going to be a thing is Conner fixing his kicking woes.
There you go.
Hitting on 2 first-half field goals to close it out. Yeah.
Oh man! In great Thanksgiving Day fashion, the score going into our halftime hot takes is Conner winning 6-0 of the Cowboys versus the Lions. We're going to do our usual kick, and then go into our halftime hot take. As it's now 7:23 in the morning.
Minds want to know, and if we were to be sponsored by a coffee company this morning, which coffee are you drinking, and why should they be our sponsor?
I'm drinking any coffee that's in my hand, but hello, Starbucks. My name is Rutledge, and I would like for you to sponsor my show. Conner does not want you to do that, and that's fine. I will do all the promos by myself. I know, Conner, that you may think that Starbucks is overrated, but as someone from the Pacific Northwest, you have to love the things that come out of your town. So, our halftime hot take, and to our couple people watching us this morning, we have 2 great people watching us. We have my friends Slaney and my friends Manny. Good morning. Happy Thanksgiving, guys. I hope you're doing well. Want to give a shout out here. Here's our halftime hot take topic. And normally Conner and I talk about these, but this year we're surprising each other. So our take this week is the most overrated Thanksgiving food of all time. Conner, do you want to do the honors? What is the most overrated Thanksgiving food?
I'm going to get some heat for this, but I'm going to stand on this corner. Most overrated Thanksgiving food, mashed potatoes. You got to have it, right? That's the staple on everybody's plate. But to me, mashed potatoes have a difficult time standing on their own. You got to, whether or not it's infused with enough bacon grease to kill an elephant, or whether or not, it's kind of mixed in with something else. I think about the foods that I could eat an entire plate of, right? And I'm not going to feel great about myself after eating an entire plate of any kind of Thanksgiving food. But, man, just some mashed potato. If I were to just plop on a plate of mashed potatoes, uh, I'd say I'm fine. Don't worry about it. So to me, I think that mashed potatoes are the most overrated Thanksgiving food. There's your hot take.
Oh, I'm going to go two because I think they're tied. And number one, the most overrated Thanksgiving food that we have out there is dressing. Someone please explain to me why a traditional food, which is basically just baked breadcrumbs or biscuit mix and cornbread mix, why is the scraps from like the dinner rolls from last week with some sage in it considered a Thanksgiving staple? You know, I usually take my dressing and cover it in gravy, but whenever the missus and I plow through the leftovers, no matter what year it is, no matter how old I am as a kid, there's always been everything goes, and there's half a pan of dressing left in the fridge next Friday, and you're either eating it or throwing it away because it just doesn't hold over well. On that, as Slaney says cranberry sauce, so thank you, Slaney. I think cranberry sauce is good as a condiment for sandwiches for the next day. But here's my real, so I'm going to give a little shout out to dressing, but here's my true Thanksgiving food. Now, I warned you, Connor, that you might not like this one. I think dessert is an overrated part of Thanksgiving.
Ooh.
So, and here's why. Thanksgiving is all about the carbs, the starches, the turkeys, the mac and cheese, the green bean casserole. I'm going to eat this massive meal, have 2 plates, and now you're going to put 6 pies in front of me? Why? Why are we doing this to ourselves?
Why?
I don't care that they're pumpkin and pecan and pine cone and whatever flavors you have of pies with just basically cinnamon and jelly on a piece of bread. I think
You've had pine cone pie?
I'm pretty sure it's out there. Like someone's made me pine cone pie, and I probably passed it because I sometimes skip dessert. So, if you're someone who thinks like dessert is the best part of Thanksgiving, I don't know, someone in your house needs to Google how to cook a turkey. Go to a Gordon Ramsay better. So,
the pumpkin pie. I have a large sweet tooth, but I have always found pumpkin pie to be a little bit underwhelming, on the Thanksgiving table meal there. And pie is not even a specifically Thanksgiving thing, right? 4th of July, apple pie.
Yeah. Now
You've got other days where pie puts its little nose in there. Now, could there be some pecan pie to throw down on that I'd be into? Yes, absolutely. But if you're going kind of the traditional pumpkin pie, I'm not, I can get underwhelmed on that for sure.
Yeah, so my wife was not surprised by my takes when she knew I was going to call out dressing, or as it's called in the comment section. Apparently, some of us call it stuffing out there in the world, so I'm a dressing person with what I call it.
I'm a stuffing man.
Oh, man.
Boy, do I love me some stuffing.
Dave Chappelle has a really good joke about stovetop stuffing for anyone out there that watches his stuff that makes me giggle a giggle. But yeah, so definitely for me a stuffing, dressing, and pie. And Connor, apparently you mashed potatoes. So we'll be skipping those later this evening, everybody, when we eat. But talk about today. We're talking about Thanksgiving. We talked about how garbage it is. We really want to see it be like the NBA. Which of the Thanksgiving Day games to you are overrated, Connor?
I'm gonna say that the Lions Texans game, the noon game here, overrated. Should not be on Thanksgiving. Should have figured out a team to flex into that spot. At least one good team.
I'm going to say the Cowboys game is overrated. Because we try to hype it up. We try to do it as America's team. We try to act like everybody's watching. We try to act like they're the team we sort of symbol for. But, the only time the Cowboys do well on Thanksgiving is when they're playing someone that's bad. And that's just kind of luck of scheduling. So let's kind of rotate some teams. I think, there's other teams out there that America would want to see. What would it be to have, instead of 4:15, you're tuning into Jerry World once again in the middle of nowhere in Dallas-Fort Worth, if we're up at Lambeau Field in Wisconsin, happy Thanksgiving, turkey stuffed with cheese.
That would be amazing.
That'd be pretty cool. A deep-fried cheese curd turkey. I want that.
A cheese curd key?
A cheese curd key. But let's jump back in second half in the 6-0 game, because it is, well, You know, Connor, I've had my head up this year. 2020 has been a rough one for a lot of us. A lot of bad things have happened to people, and I had sort of one. Well, no, we'll save that take for a little bit later. But I will say we've had some bad years and some bad times, but there's some other people that are having some worse years because there's a seat out there that's sort of heating up out in college football land, and
Moving from hot takes
to the hot seat. There are some people sitting down on the hot seat. So we're going to go through. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 coaches that are sitting there on the hot seat. So Connor, take us through our first coach who we at Front Stream Sports think needs to kind of watch theirself out there.
And these are NCAA, these are college football coaches. So we are shifting our tone here a little bit to some college football talk, talking about coaches on the hot seat. So our first coach that is up on the hot seat that we're going to touch base on is our dear friend, former Vanderbilt Commodore, current Penn State Nittany Lion, James Franklin over at Penn State.
Yeah. Take me through why Penn State is doing so bad.
You know, this year, I mean, it's easy to kind of chalk up this year to, COVID and some of those pieces. And here's going to be a theme through as we talk about multiple coaches, right? You go take a pretty good program in the Big Ten, right? And Penn State hasn't been, they haven't been their national title, contenders of the 90s and the early 2000s and things like that. But what do you got to do? You got to go beat Ohio State. You got to beat Ohio State consistently. You got to look more like Ohio State than Wisconsin when it comes to NFL quality players out there on the field. And outside of a really bad year this year, Penn State over and over and over again, just has they don't beat Ohio State, and they're a 3-loss team, maybe a 4-loss team year in, year out. Mm-hmm. And that can only go for so long. So that's my quick take on James Franklin. What do you think?
I remember when I watched James Franklin go on SVP and Rosillo, which is one of my favorite sports talk shows, and he said, this is during his Vandy days, I'm at the best academic school and the best conference in college football. Why aren't you at my school? And I said, I like this guy. And then he left and went to Penn State. And it's like, what are you doing to build your legacy there? Sitting at a 56-28 record, if you flip through his schedule, all they really do to make him seem like a legitimate coach is beat up hard on their cakewalk schedule teams. They'll put up 50 points, 40 points, maybe 60 points against bad teams. But then he'll do things like go into double overtime with App State. Like you said, they haven't beaten Ohio State since 2016. While they kind of have 10-win seasons, they're not contending for anything. And they're hardly sort of ever relevant. I was reading their records, and I was like, oh, look at you go. This is great. But no, you collapse at all of the wrong times. So I think Franklin is in for some problems. Someone else is in for some problems is our favorite school to rip on here at Friend Stream Sports, and that is the not-so-victors of Michigan and Jim Harbaugh.
Michigan.
So before we talk about what is wrong at Michigan, why does the world love Jim Harbaugh, Connor? Because besides having Andrew Luck and building a questionable Stanford program into relevancy, what is he, and maybe getting San Francisco to a Super Bowl, what else is there to this guy?
It is difficult to get a team to a Super Bowl, so little credit there. But I think that part of it is that Harbaugh has a shtick. I think that the khaki pants thing, as silly as it might sound, we love a team with a shtick. We love a coach with a shtick. We love a guy with it. We love the turnover chain. So I think that, as weird as it might sound, the fact that Jim Harbaugh always sports khaki pants and has had some pretty good records over the years has, given him some publicity with the fans. I think part of it too being the quote Michigan man, right, which is why Rich Rodriguez left or was never fully embraced. He wasn't that quote Michigan man. I think that has given him more time in Michigan, even though really he has underperformed the most at Michigan. So I think that's kind of qualitatively, if you will, some of those pieces there on Harbaugh. But Rutledge, I know you've got some nice stats from our stat machine, thanks to hopeful sponsor Google.
Yes.
Talk through a little bit of some of your stats about Harbaugh.
So Jim Harbaugh, to me, his time at Michigan is just that fan in the yellow hoodie after they lost to Michigan State with his hands on his head. Which, shout out to our viewer, Slaney. I watched that live with him. But Harbaugh, he's 78-42, which you say, that sounds great. But they're 1-5 in bowl games, and he went to a triple overtime with Rutgers. So when you're sort of having that situation where you have maybe a stacked sort of record, but you have nothing to prove for it, and you choke later in the postseason, and they really struggle against Ohio State and Michigan State, there's not much to show for it. And I think the fan base has really sort of bowed their time in hope for we don't know what we're supposed to have, and he's going to be tucking in a different sweater into khakis soon.
Yeah, they yet again. That's another team. That's another coach that needs to look more like Ohio State than Wisconsin, and just doesn't do it. So next up, Rutledge, talk about Les Miles, and I do have a soft spot for the Jayhawks, but talk about Les Miles over Kansas.
Mm-hmm. Les Miles in Kansas. Before we go into Les Miles at Kansas, remember how weird it got at LSU near the end? With Les Miles, it got really sort of strange, and LSU was great, and he was contending for championships and doing really, really well. And then all of a sudden, Kansas sort of fell off, and LSU fell off and didn't do good. Like he got into the middle of a season, got fired in the middle of the year, and now he's trying to take a Kansas program that was not doing well, and it's getting worse. They have multiple losses where they haven't even scored 10 points. And I just think that this isn't a program fit for him. I think they tried to go out and get a big name for their school to try to relive the 2008 glory days. But I think that Kansas and Mike and Les Miles are not a marriage made for anyone. What do you take of it?
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not like Kansas can't win football games. Even besides... I know it's a while back now, but even besides their Orange Bowl back in 2008, they weren't horrible. I think you can chalk some of that up to the cupboard being pretty bare recruiting wise and having some real issues recruiting. In LSU being around such great high school football, you could kind of, you could walk in with your LSU hoodie and throw a rock and hit a 5-star recruit. It felt like so. There's some issues there, but man, Les has got to start showing some signs of improvement with that Jayhawk program here soon. So, why don't you share, Rutledge, a little bit here about Tom Herman staying in the Big 12?
Oh, Tom Herman is... I remember when Tom Herman got hired at Texas, and Tom Herman was not there when Texas was back, folks, was the popular quote of Labor Day weekend. Tom Herman, who's 30-17 in Texas. Houston was amazing when he was there. You thought they could go against and play with anybody, but Tom Herman is the type of coach. By the way, we have twin boys staying at my house for all of our listeners, and they just woke up. Tom and Herman was the type of coach to where he's one of those small school coaches to where his system works at a small school, and kind of like a Mike Leach program where he has a system where it can beat slower, less talented players, but it's not going to work in the big boy league, and it's shown by his inconsistency against Oklahoma, and they're sort of lost to winnable games. One of their struggle wins was against Kansas, so I think that Tom Herman got put into too big of a job, and Texas is not the fit for him. He needs to be in somewhere that's a little more where his schemes and his staff can kind of outwit the other team and not just depend on the recruiting and the talent to just beat the other team.
Amen to that. So, Texas is maybe not back just yet. So what do we think about David Shaw here?
David Shaw, let's all remember that David Shaw walked into Jim Harbaugh's roster and had Andrew Luck, and he also had Christian McCaffrey in his time, and both of those dudes are household NFL names. But outside of once he loses that roster, Connor, you have a great quote. You said You have to have, good plays work with good players. And when you have two different teams that have good players, they're going to do good things. But they're in the Pac-12, which is not a strong conference. They got crushed last year. Their defense sort of fell apart. And their last bowl game was against Pitt, but it was a 17-13 win. And anytime you play a struggle game against Pitt, that's not a good sign for you. So I think David Shaw is... Oh, and I just threw a pick. I think in typical Lions Thanksgiving Day fashion, trying to win it late and throws a pick. I think David Shaw is... he just doesn't have the talent coming to him. And I think that he's sort of played his course, but I think he also lucked into having the good players to keep him afloat. What do you think of David Shaw?
What I remember hearing a quote from David Shaw. Due to the academic elements of Stanford, David Shaw every year, in essence, has a 3 scholarship restriction because you have to some schools you don't have to qualify. You can kind of literally football players can kind of get skirted by without maybe hitting the standards academically of other schools. Stanford is not a school like that. They're kind of like, you got your Vanderbilt, your Stanford, and your Northwestern, right? And I think in some ways, even David Shaw for David Shaw to make a bowl eligible on average, I just threw a pick here in Conner fashion. We're doing a, by the way,
always coming down to the wire in the fourth quarter.
When we're doing an immovable object versus another immovable object, and that I always lose to Rutledge from some unexplainable thing, and Rutledge is playing as the Lions, so something is going to give here. I think David Shaw, should he turn it around? Yes, but he does have a lot of struggles. He might be the coach on this with maybe just a warm seat, maybe not necessarily a hot seat, but man, it is nice to see. It is always good to have a good I like having a good Stanford. I think it's fun out there in the Pac-12. Put another team out up north besides just an Oregon or a Washington to give balance to that conference. But
or a USC.
Well, yeah, I'm saying up north, and when you think of Pac-12, you think of all the Southern California schools. Sometimes Arizona State making some noise, maybe a little bit. But, north, you kind of got your powers up north, and it's always good to have a fun Stanford team. That night game against SCs, there was a lot of fun games. But without that, it's kind of, you wish Stanford was better than they were. That's for sure. So,
exactly.
What do you think as we hit into our final? I know you got a hot take here.
Oh man, I have one more hot seat.
Take for us?
Oh man, my one hot take, someone I think who their seat is heating up, is I'm going to go on a very passionate rant here and talk about Mr. Kirby Smart at the University of Georgia. And Kirby Smart, I think he is showing that the fundamentals of his coaching staff are really sort of struggling. And I think he had Mark Richt's very top talent. That coaching staff under Richt could really recruit. But when you lose to Nick Saban 2 major games in a row with the same trick of, we're going to switch our quarterback at the half, and you're not going to know what to do with it. And it works twice. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on your coaching staff. I think the University of Georgia world is seeing very slowly but surely that the lack of offensive identity in Athens, as well as that the only person to come out of there, Hot Rod Blankenship, while a cool dude, is not a legacy. And I think Kirby Smart's seat will heat up in the next year or two. But on to that.
That's a hot take.
But on to that as we kind of close here in the last couple of minutes. Connor, there's supposed to be rivalry weekend this weekend, but there's only 8 rivalry games, and 5 of them are in group of 5 games. Shout out to the Sun Belt Conference who respected rivalry week, but how does that make you feel that we're not going to have mega college football Saturday?
Rutledge, it makes me feel really sad. When I finished my college football career, the loss against Bethel College, being a Florida State fan, literally the next thing I did is I went to get a gigantic low-carb monster, like 3 Milky Way candy bars, and a Little Caesars Hot and Ready. And the only thing that kept me afloat that day as my college football career ended was getting to watch Florida State lay a beat down on Florida. Although this year I don't think that would happen, and I think if Governor DeSantis tried to make that happen, I think he would lose some support with Florida State Nation.
Right.
Man, it's going to be a different year for sure. And even some breaking news, with Nick Saban finally testing positive for coronavirus. I think that Nick Saban is, that's going to definitely add some real interesting elements to that game, as well as the Apple Cup being canceled out west. So we got a lot of tough things going on. But I'm just thankful to have football as it is. I remember during the summer, I know we don't like to talk about COVID much, but sometimes it is a pandemic. It does bleed over into sports.
Mm-hmm.
I remember saying, man, we might not even have a college football season. So very thankful to be at least having a college football season. But man, this is definitely going to be a different sort of rivalry week. That's for sure. But maybe there's a rivalry game that develops out of this.
Maybe
that we get to talk about there. So, why do you think rivalry week is usually so good?
I think it's just so cool that it's the pageantry. It's the whole thing of what makes college football beautiful. It's the pageantry. It's the profile. It's the everybody in the same place. It's that family where they finally get together and everyone sort of. Family that sort of joins together on Thanksgiving, but on Saturday we don't like each other as much because you're wearing that t-shirt or you're wearing that jersey. I think it's really cool to have and sort of see how we can sort of unwrap this and make what different, and that's the beauty of actual college football is rivalry weekend. I will say this year I am not sad that I don't have to watch Clemson play South Carolina, because I think the ACC, SEC, in-state rivalries are some of the best ones, but it's just when you think about college football, you look at the beauty of just what makes it simple and what makes it pure, and rivalries is sort of the biggest stance on it. That's why ESPN made a whole episode of their 150 years of college football special about rivalries. So love a good rivalry weekend. I was very disappointed the Pac-12 did not schedule Arizona State this weekend. They're playing each other, so why didn't we put that down on the dock? But
that seems like a gigantic misfire.
It's a huge misfire. Why didn't we have the struggling Kevin Summerlin versus Herm Edwards for some reason? I still don't understand why he's a coach there. But that is...
Because they play to win the game.
Because they play to win the game. And that is our walk-off quote as we finish. Rutledge tries a last-ditch throw. And then, look at that. Cowboys won on Thanksgiving Day. The streak is ended. Conner wins Madden. Lions lose. What a day. Hi. So here we go. As we're going to close in picks, and I have to go play with some 4-year-olds. We're going to talk about our games today. Obviously, we're not picking Ravens Steelers anymore, but Texans Lions. I'm taking the Lions. Who are you taking? Who are you taking at noon? I'm going Lions. They're -2. I think that they're going to turn around some of their bad Thanksgiving Day juju here. Yeah, very cool. This afternoon, though, I'm going Washington. I think Alex Smith is going to take that win against Dallas in that 1.5 point line.
Dallas with a one. I think that Dallas, although here's the thing, and some more potentially breaking news. Dallas's longtime strength coach died yesterday.
That is that's very sad.
Yeah, so he was rushed to the hospital on. Today feels like a Saturday. He was rushed to the hospital, I believe, on Monday. Just saw this morning via ESPN he died. So I could see the Cowboys really rallying around that. Good strength coaches are worth more than just telling you to bench more weight, but they can give a real emotional heartbeat to the team.
Yeah.
I think Dallas is going to come out, win this game, and oddly enough, be in the driver's seat in the division. So
right at a 500 record.
Yes.
But our viewers are taking Lions. They're taking Washington. Happy Thanksgiving, Conner.
Happy Thanksgiving, Rutledge. We're Friend Stream Sports, and I hope you have some extra turkey, but not extra mashed potatoes today.
Yeah. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for supporting us early in the morning. We wish you the best as we march on for this year. Have a great day.